Don't you think we want to have tea? Why should we not have some refreshments at our meetings? After all.
Go to all these restaurants, if you manage not to get the German vacation, we get all the tourists, right? It's so much easier.
Are you ready? Okay. Shall we begin? We, the members of the Social and Economic Justice Commission, would like to reaffirm that we welcome and value all of our diverse community members, regardless of where they are from, who they love, how they worship, how they look, their gender identity, their abilities, their economic status, or how they vote. We honor the Albany people who were the original stewards of this land. And let us begin with the roll call.
So, Commissioner Downs?
Here.
Commissioner Kerr? Commissioner Marks? Here. Commissioner Parsley?
Here.
And Chair Grossman?
Here. Okay, approval of the minutes. The minutes of April 2nd. Any comments? Anything wrong should be corrected? If not, a motion to approve.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Public comment. Anyone from the public wish to make a comment? Okay. Announcements.
I don't have any
No
specific announcements.
Anyone on the commission have an announcement?
I just wanted to report back that I did attend the White Allies training that was here in the city, and it was very worthwhile. There's a lot of really good work being done that is continuing, and although I can't participate because of scheduling issues, I'm encouraged that many people in the city are very engaged in this issue. So that was a good thing.
Thank you. Presentation, Isabel?
Yes, so we have two presentations tonight, and the first one is on the rent review program, and Sid Schoenfeld, our neighborhood services manager, is here to provide you some up-to-date information on the program, which began November 2nd, 2018.
Thank you. Chair Grossman, SEJC Commissioners, my name is Sid Schoenfeld. I'm the Neighborhood Services Manager. Hello. I'm here to give you the Rent Review Program Status Report. The overview of the program is on June the 4th, 2018. Did I not put it on the screen? Sorry, Jeremy. On June 4, 2018, the Albany City Council approved the ordinance that added Section 5-25, Rent Review, to the Albany Municipal Code establishing a rent review program. The ordinance regulates most residential rental units in Albany and provides a mediation process for qualifying rent increases. Landlord participation in the rent review process is mandatory, but all recommendations are non-binding. The rent review ordinance and associated rent review program were effective on November 2nd, 2018. Our rent review outreach for the rent review program included a city-wide mailer, posting on the city website, the city's weekly e-news. It was distributed through that media. Postings at all city facilities' bulletin boards, and flyer distribution to all city facilities. In addition, we conducted 3 community workshops and also made presentations along with our neighborhood services. Our rent review engagement included contacts with in-person individuals, telephone and electronic mail for inquiries and program details and information. Through March of 2019, we made 34 contacts with landlords, 14 contacts with tenants, and 9 contacts with others. So that could be property managers, building managers, family and friends of either tenants or landlords. So our rent review requests, once again, the rent review program is administered by Echo Housing. And up, once again, through March, we had 3 cases that we were given case numbers for. The first 2 early in the program in November were settled, and there was a resolution before conciliation. The last one went up through mediation, which was held on April 20th, 2019, and we are still awaiting the outcome of that mediation. If you have any questions, be more than happy to answer anything on the rent review program.
Anyone?
Sid, this is a great report. Thank you. I'm just curious about whether is a plan for continued outreach to landlords and renters in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. So we still continue to run it through the e-news, and that's a great idea to do a news blast also on the website. All the information is always up on the website, and the forms are accessible.
And flyers are available also
Flyers are
at
also
city
available.
facilities.
Correct.
Anyone else? I was curious. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
I was curious, I was not here, I mean, I was in Albany, but I was not on a commission when this was being reviewed. At the time when you all put it into practice, what were your expectations of how many cases you expected you'd have? Or
Well, we did a comparison, and we piloted our program off of Union City, which had very few. So our expectations were about what we're seeing now, and the engagement is high, and the conversations are definitely happening between landlords and tenants.
I was curious about the fact that you reached 14 tenants and 34 landlords. Why was that so disproportionate?
It's hard to say.
But I mean, what are we tracking here exactly? Your outreach or their?
So that would be in-person contacts, telephone
Okay.
calls.
So these are people who called to
Correct.
inquire.
Called, came in, emailed, so some sort of contact, and the landlords 34 times did that up through March. So this is still continuing every day. I talked to a tenant just recently, within the last day or so. I talked with a landlord on Friday. So it's ongoing engagement. And those are the contact. We're just keeping track of the contacts. We love to hear from more tenants, and we've done the outreach citywide for the mailer for the program. It's hard to track down the tenants, and unfortunately, they didn't participate in the workshop as much as the landlords did.
Is it possible to flyer the apartment buildings in town?
So we've done a citywide mailer already when the program started, and we don't have it in the budget right now to do another mailer, but possibly that's something we can do next year after we basically evaluate the program after a year and see how it goes. But the engagement is ongoing. The first page, I went back to the first page because I wanted it to be clear that the engagement piece is based on SID's engagement with the community versus the second page is what Echo Housing has been working on.
Right.
So you can see that there's a lot of engagement, but not so much goes towards Echo Housing because a lot of the questions are resolved at just a conversation with SID and the landlord or the tenant, or there's no referral to Echo, or if there is, the tenant or landlord feel that they've their questions have been answered. And a lot of the questions we got at the beginning of the program were from landlords who wanted to make sure that they were compliant. So understanding the forms, understanding what they needed to do to be compliant with the new ordinance. So I think that may be one of the reasons why we heard more from the landlords, because they felt a responsibility towards being compliant. And also, we had a, they had to pay the new fee through the business license renewal, so that generated more questions.
I'm sure. I'm struck by the fact that this one case was a 27% rent increase.
Yes, $505.
That's really
It's
quite,
outrageous.
yeah. Well, I guess that's what this is about, but it'll be
Well, I'm
interesting.
glad the
to
person
see.
had the opportunity
Yeah.
for mediation.
I guess I'd like to just add one more thought that it concerns me that we might be limiting our review to just a 12-month period. In my experience as a renter, although it was a while ago, was that it really took a couple of years for the rent increases to sort of really have an impact. And a program such as this might not really show any outcome until 2 or 3 years have passed. So
Oh, it's going to continue. It's going to be ongoing.
Right.
Yes, of course. At the 1-year period, then, we're going to continue to report to you on a quarterly basis, but probably in December, there'll be a formal presentation to council on evaluating the program, and also based on recommendations coming from the SEJC.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
And Sid, I wondered if you could give us a just impressionistic sense. The contacts when people make are to you, is that right? Just an impressionistic sense of, not statistical, but just, what are people asking you about?
Exactly what Isabel explained. So the landlords are looking for, the threshold when they have to give that notice of availability. The requirements for giving the availability, is it a new lease, is it a continuing lease? And the tenants are looking for their rights for the ordinance as well.
Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you very much, Sid.
You're welcome, thank you.
Albany Cares.
So we'll proceed with the presentation on Albany Cares, and Anne-Marie Heinemann, the Albany Cares Director, is here to provide you with an update on the first 3 months of the program.
Hello.
Hi.
So you've got these numbers in your packet, and these represent what's been going on since the beginning of the year. I started with Albany Cares in December, but, I didn't really get going, I don't think, until January, so that's good. And we moved to our own space in this senior youth annex, moved out of the senior center in the very beginning of February. So we were able to kind of do a lot more outreach after we had a set place where we knew we were going to be, and we could at least say on our flyers that there's coffee and snacks available, whereas we couldn't really do that in the senior center. So we started doing outreach much more seriously in the end of January and going forward. And I have 6 dedicated volunteers right now, and they did quite a bit of the outreach, and that'll be on a different page. So in the 3 months, we had 65 contacts by people coming to our drop-in hours, and we have drop-in hours on Wednesdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we try to be very consistent about that. We didn't have drop-in hours the week of Christmas. We were located in the senior center still, and they were closed for the week. But other than that, I don't think we've missed any Wednesdays and Fridays. So that is the number of contacts of people coming in to see us there. And then we had almost an equal number of contacts with people through emails, phone calls, and sometimes face-to-face meetings in other places. So that came out to 127 total contacts, and we have more than one contact with lots of our clients. So of those 127, it's 49 clients in total, 49 different people that we served over those 3 months. Some of them, it might have been just a one-time phone call or visit, but several people we see almost on a weekly basis. We were able to get some demographics. We weren't collecting these very regularly in the beginning, so there's some information we don't know, and a lot of it is our guesswork. We don't ask people their age unless they offer it. We just kind of take a guess. But you can see that the majority of the people we've been working with are seniors, 55 and up. And we don't know really if that's because of our proximity to the senior center, because they are definitely sending people over to us right next door. And I think people associate us with the senior center. So we don't know if that's the reason we see so many seniors, or if it's the seniors in Albany or the environment around Albany that really need the most help. We're trying to do specific outreach to other groups. In terms of gender, it's been a majority women. And with ethnicity, a majority of European American people, although we've seen some Latinx people, some Asian American, some African American. Of course, when someone calls on the phone, I don't know what their ethnicity is, and I don't ask, so those are unknowns. The majority of the people are residents of Albany, and just a few from neighboring areas. Once in a while, we'll get a call from someone who lives out of state, but they're calling because their parents, for instance, might live in Albany, and they're concerned about their parents and want to look into home care for them. So, and we may never talk to the parents at all. Maybe we just talk to the person who calls in to ask. Most of the people we're seeing are housed. We do see quite a few homeless people, and those people we're referring to Albany Project Hope, and some of them are already connected with Albany Project Hope. But most of the people we're seeing are housed. Going forward, I think we'll get more information about whether people are renters or homeowners, but we definitely see both. And the main issues, so these are very broad categories. Housing can comprise someone who's concerned that they're not going to be able to afford to stay in Albany, or it could be a tenant who needs to have repairs done. It could be someone who's having problems with a roommate, or a landlord who's having problems with a tenant. But the majority of people we're seeing, it's about some issue around housing. And of course, we do see a number of people who are having affordability issues, and we're trying to get very on top of what's out there in terms of affordable housing. And I think we're doing a pretty good job with that. We've been gathering what information there is so that we have things to look through with people when they come and ask about applying for affordable housing. We also see quite a number of people with home care issues. It could be that they need some kind of medical care in the home, but it could also be they just need help with their laundry, or even someone just to come in and visit them. We've had some calls like that. Financial issues. We help people if they're having difficulties with their SSI or their Social Security. We usually end up referring them to a place that can do more in-depth work with them, but sometimes it's just a simple issue that we can help them resolve. And of course, some people just come to talk, And a number of the people who come in and have another issue also just want to talk. And sometimes the issue they came to us for has been resolved, but they like to come and check in and get that support. So in terms of the level of assistance, I'm kind of going from the lowest level to the more intensive level. The lowest level is just someone who comes in and we talk to them. And that's about a quarter of the people. And then the next level up is talking and giving them a referral. And that's the majority of the folks we see. We have referrals right there for them, or we'll make a phone call or look something up. We try not to just hand somebody a list of phone numbers. A lot of people kind of need help making those calls, and we're finding that some of the lists that we have, are not, things change so quickly. You can call 5 different places and only 4 of them are still doing what, or only 1 of them rather, out of the 5 is still doing what you called them about. I had that experience today looking for an agency that does rental assistance, and it's shrunk down to a couple of agencies. The next step up from that is when we do some kind of research on an issue for them, make phone calls after the drop-in times, and then do some kind of follow-up with the client. And then after that is when we really get involved and advocate for a client, help them fill out applications. On a separate issue, we do refer people to Berkeley Food and Housing Project, mainly who are homeless, sometimes who are in danger of becoming homeless. And over this past 3-month period, we did 9 of those referrals and 2 referrals to Berkeley Mental Health. You can see most of the people who have come to us found out about us from the Albany Senior Center, but as we've done more and are continuing to do more outreach, people are finding out in other ways as well. People are starting to see our signs in different places or word of mouth from someone else. And then the last page is about the outreach we've done. So volunteers and I have gone out and kind of pounded the pavement, talking to different people in different businesses and asking if they would be willing to put a flyer up. And so on the top, we have all of the businesses or agencies that posted our flyers. And next are presentations that we were involved in, including you all. One of the volunteers and I went to the annual meeting of the Solano Avenue Association and did a little networking and outreach there. And of course, outreach that's through email or phone or in person as well. And one of our volunteers handed out flyers at the film festival, and we've contacted the middle school and the high school PTAs. The showers program, go to pretty regularly. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I would just like to really thank you. I think you've done an exemplary job, and on behalf of the commission, I think we're all really happy to have you as employee of our city.
Thank you, and thank you for your help.
I guess one question I would have is, what do you think the city, the commission, what can we do to get the word out there more? I mean, in your view?
Well, I think that it's just a matter of time. I think the word will get out and is getting out. And really, I'm not sure that we could handle
That was going to be my next question.
more people than we're seeing already. I have backed off of outreach a little bit because it's just me and the volunteers during the drop-in hours. And, you know, and I'm learning about what services are out there and how to find them. But I think over time, people will just realize that we're there. And, you know, over time, we'll manage to post our flyers in more places. I think it's still going into the activity guide and the e-news, and there's still lots of agencies and places that when we have the time, we're going to do more outreach. We were talking about going to the library and rec program site and setting up a little place with our flyer and information, but we just haven't had a chance to do that yet.
And then how is working with Berkeley Food and Housing?
They're great. I get the feeling that at least the person who is assigned to us is a little bit, has a lot of work in front of her and isn't always available to us. And I would like to be a bit more connected with them, but just haven't managed to make that happen yet. I think they do really good work, and when they get involved, they really take care of the clients that we refer to them. We've had people come in who are homeless, but they also have issues with their SSI, and, you know, they don't know where to get their health care. And Caitlin, who's our Albany Project Hope person, just takes over and takes care of all of that. So that's really wonderful.
And then is there things that Albany Cares is in need of from, let's say, a member of the community or members of the community, or is there stuff that you're in need of?
You know, I think we're starting to identify gaps where there are things that people need that maybe aren't available. It's going to take me a little bit more time to be more clear about what those gaps are. Of course, we know that affordable housing is an issue. I think that there may be something in the area of home care that will be coming up, because there are a lot of seniors in Albany, and people who don't have the money to pay for home care or don't have some kind of long-term care policy. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to find a lot for them.
Home care is extremely expensive.
Right. So there's a real aging population. I mean, this isn't just a problem in Albany, it's a problem in a lot of places. But it's something that maybe the city could get involved in some way. I'm sure there are other things too. I'll tell you next time.
Great.
I've got a couple of questions. One suggestion, by the way, there are a variety of medical offices in Albany, and also on San Pablo, there's that Sutter place, and they see a lot of people who have service needs that they can't respond to.
Right.
So that would be a good place.
A good place for outreach. Sutter on San Pablo is one of the ones? Okay, great. Thank you.
How many people do you think you're seeing, if you can guess, a week?
We see on average 3 people in during drop-in time. So about 6 people a week, more or less. But then we also probably get about 5 or 6 other contacts through other, right. But they may be some of the same people. We're not getting, 6 new people a week, or 6 contacts from people that we aren't already working with. Yeah.
How do you, this tricky situation, if you have people who are coming for conversation because you can't serve them in any other way, or you can't meet needs that they have, but there's a point where that begins to absorb a lot of your time.
Right.
I'm wondering how you're handling that.
That's a good question. I think one of the ways, well, first of all, we are several people there. So I can be meeting with somebody while, one of the volunteers is meeting with someone else and the other, so we can all, and it's nice for the volunteers to have things to do. And some of them are quite happy to, just sit and talk with someone who really needs that. So it's usually not a problem. And sometimes we have to give people gentle hints, or we have to cut off our conversation because someone else has come in, and we might have to explain to them that we're going to have to check and see what this other person needs. It's not a problem, and I feel like when and if we get a lot busier, we might have to start setting some more limits, but we don't really need to yet.
Do you have Berkeley Mental Health coming in anymore? Is that...
We do. We have Marcella Sabin comes in twice a month, where those are the scheduled times. She's supposed to come in twice a month.
And is there enough business for her?
I don't think there really has been, but I'm hoping to meet with her. She's away right now, but she'll be back soon, and kind of talk about maybe other ways that she could be helpful to us during her time there, because I want to make use of her.
Yeah.
We certainly have a lot of people coming in who have mental health issues. I feel like we could really use that support, so I don't want to lose her.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything?
Just a couple points, and I have to disclose to everyone that I am a volunteer at the center, so I'm not sure if I should recuse myself or the conversation, but there were a couple instances that happened in the last few months that I felt like we needed to do a bit more outreach. There was a GoFundMe page that was set up for a middle school family in the city of Albany, where there were resources available that could have been accessed in addition to a GoFundMe page.
Right.
So my question really is about outreach. Have we tried to narrow that gap on information with those particular circumstances? In other words, did we call back the middle school folks who were doing the GoFundMe page to make sure they knew that we were there?
I did call the people whose contact information I could get off of the GoFundMe page, but it just wasn't the right person to talk to. And you sent out some emails, and I made some phone calls, but we didn't manage to find the person who we need to talk to in order to maybe get a flyer posted or get an announcement made or send an email out. And that's going to take a little bit more work that I just haven't had a chance to do. But it often is like that. It takes a while to find the right person who's going to do something with our message. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the general public to know about us. And I'd like to also echo Margie's comments that you're doing a great job, and we really appreciate having you.
Thank you. And you do too.
And I have to disclose that I'm also a volunteer.
Yes, I think that's clear. You may already know, but we are planning to be part of a mental health first aid workshop that's going to be happening in June. And Judy had asked whether she could let all of you know and that you're invited to be part of that class. It's going to be, I think, on the 10th and the 14th of June in the afternoons. It's going to be two-part. And Berkeley Mental Health will be leading the class.
Will there'll be a city announcement about that?
I don't think so, because
Just us, yeah.
yeah, so far, we can only manage about 15 people. And so far, we put out the invitation to the people who were involved in the Diverse Housing Working Group and our group, the Senior Center, and you guys. If we don't have 15 people, we can certainly, put it out to more people.
Are you asking us to register in some way?
Not yet, but if you know you're interested, let me know.
Okay,
I can send an email
yeah, maybe that would be.
when we've got the times and dates set.
Okay, I guess that's it then. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry, it didn't occur to me. Go ahead.
Sure.
Microphone move.
Is this for me?
Yes, I just have a few questions.
Sorry to make you walk.
I fell down and fractured my knee. Don't ever do that. It makes me understand why the mafia threatens to hit your knees. Boy, does that hurt. Yeah. Just don't hit my knee, whatever you do. I just had a couple questions. Okay, so first of all, just about the ethnicity, are you asking them their ethnicity or you're just guessing?
We're not.
You're not asking? Okay.
No.
And is it important, because I don't know if you're familiar with the PBS race sorting quiz, but people are actually really terrible at guessing other people's ethnicity.
I
So,
wasn't aware of.
yeah, I could send you a link to it. It's very interesting, because I've done it several times and I fail it every single time. So, anyway, I just wanted to mention that to you if it was important. And then I wanted to know how you keep your referral lists up to date, because you were commenting that, and I know that that's an issue at libraries where we have a referral list and then if there isn't somebody staying on top of it all the time, places go away. If you need somebody to make those phone calls and keep it up to date, I would be happy to do that, because
We'd love your help.
yeah, okay, so I will get in touch with you about that, but I just was wondering how you do that. And then, are you doing outreach on the streets to people?
We have done some. One of our volunteers went out with some of the folks from the Diverse Housing Working Group when they hand out sandwiches and, to people basically sitting on the streets, and she handed out flyers to people who were sitting in different places. She handed out about 20 flyers.
Okay.
But it's more at different events.
Mm-hmm.
People sometimes take our flyers and, have a chance to say something. We haven't gone out and tabled on the street.
Okay. And then the final thing was that some public libraries have a day where they invite in service providers, I know Berkeley did it, and libraries across the country actually are doing that, where they have different tables. Some do it once a month, and I was thinking maybe you would a good idea might be to reach out to the library and see if you could have maybe not just you, but other agencies in the area could, a day where they did that. And again, if you want help doing that, I worked there for a long time, so I would be happy to help with that too.
I think that's a great idea. I know we're making more contacts with the library, and actually Caitlin has spoken about doing a resource day.
Yeah.
Not at the library exactly, but in the rec program area. So I think that's a really good idea.
Okay, great. All right. And thank you for your work. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so we're done with presentations. Moving on to 6.1, Homeless Emergency Aid Program, the HEAP program. Isabella, you're going to give us an update?
Yes, so as you know, the city of Albany is going to receive $338,234 in HEAP funding, which is the Homeless Emergency Aid Program administered by Alameda County. The funding comes from the state. The program did go to council, and and they suggested that we come to you to get your feedback on the use of HEAP funds. And then staff went back to the council on April 15th and presented two different expenditure plans to the council for their consideration. The expenditure plans were based on discussions with the council, with the SEJC, with Berkeley Food and Housing Project staff. And the main difference between the two options were whether or not to include the purchase of a public restroom unit. or to focus the utilization of the funding specifically on the areas of housing subsidies and homeless prevention. So attached to the staff report that I provided, you have the option that was selected by council, and it was basically option 1 with a slight revision, moving some funding from encampment cleanup to increase housing prevention activities. So total amount is still the same. Next step for staff is to work with the county to draw up a contract, and that's in progress, and then work with BFHB for the expenditure of the funds over the next 2 years, because again, it's a very quick turnaround on the expenditure of the funds.
Questions?
When I look at who is going to administer, for example, it says increased housing subsidies to allow for deeper and longer subsidies for people newly housed. There's 79,000 in one of the ones. So who will administer those funds for all of these different people who are
Well,
at
the
risk?
city is administering the funds, but the funds will be part of the contract with Berkeley Food and Housing Project, because they're the ones who are providing the outreach and housing folks. So, but I'm still working on the details, because we do have also the hub, which also provides services, and they do provide services to families. So trying to work out all the details so that the money is streamlined to the right programs and the right places. So it's still a work in progress.
Anyone else?
I think we probably talked about this, but I can't recall. Is there a sort of midway check-in to make sure that we're not going to end up with a bunch of unspent money on our hands and things like that?
Right,
No,
so.
that's not the usual problem.
Right. Well, it is a lot of money to have all at once for a small city our size. So it is somewhat of a challenge, but the midpoint is that 50% of the funds have to be in contract by January 2020. So our goal is to do that, and then we'll continue to monitor the use of the fundings as we move along. But first, we need to get the contract with the county in place and move forward with that.
When you say funds in contract, you mean that they've been allocated to individuals, or could they be allocated to Berkeley Food and Housing?
Yeah, allocated to Berkeley Food and Housing Project, and even for the county's purpose, allocated to the city of Albany. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think, again, more information needs to be revealed.
Yeah, but if they can be allocated to Berkeley Food and Housing Project, they're considered spent.
Yeah, well, from the
county's
perspective,
Yeah.
I don't know. So those things that have to be, yes.
Yeah, because that can be tricky, yes. Okay.
Okay,
Anything else?
I have something. I noticed on the option 1, it's $75,000 for encampment cleanup. Option 2, it's $50,000. Is there currently an encampment in Albany that the city thinks needs to be cleaned up?
I'm not aware of an encampment that needs to be cleaned up at this time, but they do occur over, as the information provided to staff from the Public Works Department is that they do have to clean up some encampments, mostly small ones now, and then there is a need for some funding for that.
I visited a homeless encampment. It's on Berkeley, off Martin Luther King, and there's a big here and there sign. It's a bunch of tents. It's very neat. And I went in there and asked them how they keep it so clean, because I'd never seen a homeless, and I've driven by there many times, and I've never seen garbage or people sitting around doing whatever. So I spoke to the people. The city does a garbage pickup twice a week for them. Once a week was not enough. I mean, so the city's really working with them to keep it. They're working themselves to keep it clean, but the city's working with them to keep it clean. They have a porta potty. They put their own lock on it because people were going in. So they only give the key to the people who live there, but they're taking responsibility, and that's been there like years, I think, that encampment.
Still right there.
Can I ask a question? So there are two documents listed as option one. And so the one that came out of council is the first one that says revised 4/15/2019, is that right? So page 12?
So you should be looking at the staff report that I provided in the SEJC's packet, not the one that was provided to council.
Right.
So the option, the revised option is the one provided in the SEJC packet.
And I think that's the one where the encampment is now 50,000.
50,000, exactly, because
Previous option
council-
one, the previous document that was labeled option
75, yes. So
Okay,
that
I
was
just
the
wanna make sure I
difference,
understood.
was that $25,000 from encampment cleanup went to housing prevention activities. Yeah.
That's good, but it's 50K still seems like a lot to clean up a non-encampment.
Yeah, it's over 2 years,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, well, we'll see if we use it.
Right, there was a decision out of Boise that said if the city doesn't have a place for homeless people to go, then they can't kick them out of the park or wherever they are residing.
Okay, thank you for that. And you're on again with sugar sweetened. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Why don't you stay there and talk loud?
No, actually, she can't, because it's a recorded meeting, so I'm sorry. You just- Maybe you can sit closer.
Yeah, why don't you sit up there? Yeah.
Just sit up here with us. Just take my chair up there.
That would be fine.
Actually, it was on crutches. This is better.
I just had I think the decision's already been made, but I just wanted to make further what Margie was alluding to. And it seems like the city would be much better off investing in providing garbage service and providing porta potties that people could lock, and anything else that they need to support. It would be cheaper than $50,000, I'm sure. And it would also be much more supportive and not so stigmatizing. Just the implication, the way that this is even written implies that people are messy, needle-using, whatever it is. And I also want to object to the term encampment. These are communities. They're not, I mean, if they're encampments, we're all encampments. You know, they live there. And so I would encourage the city to stop using the word encampment and to start using community. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. Moving on then, Isabel.
Wait, do we have to make a decision between option one or option two?
No,
Okay, all right.
No, the
Decision's
council
already been made.
All right.
Council made the decision.
Yeah, so the sugar sweetened beverage tax.
Yes, so this is an update on basically last night's meeting. The council reviewed the proposed expenditure plan presented to them yesterday after they had the work session on April 1st. So they first had the work session on April 1st, received comments from different commissions and committees and input from the community, provided direction to staff based on the input received, and staff drafted the expenditure plan that we provided you with a link in your email, but basically you could go, but no, it's not there. So basically the expenditure plan, council approved the inclusion of the expenditure plan in the next fiscal year's budget, and what they approved is more installations of water bottle filling stations, the continuing free nutrition and cooking and gardening classes, and free physical fitness classes in parks. And also continuing to fund the crossing guard program. They also want to put some funding into the Safe Route to School program and a new program called Healthy Me Music and Movement Program, which is actually an educational program that was started in Berkeley schools and funded by SSB in Berkeley to provide kindergartners transition kindergartners and preschoolers, educational information through music and movement, and on the the benefits of good nutrition and not basically drinking soda. So the total expenditure plan approved by council was $305,000.
Okay.
Happy to take more questions if you have any.
Questions about that? No, thank you. Okay. We are now up to Albany Project Hope. You want to take us there?
Yes, so as usual, this is the third quarter report provided by Berkeley Food and Housing Project on their activities for Albany Project Hope, which is the homeless outreach and engagement program for the city. You'll see that there's a narrative, and attached to the narrative are the performance measures and targets for the year, and also a tracking of outreach service activities. And then, as requested by the commission, we also provided a demographic report for housing navigation. So the way they track clients is information is basically when Caitlin works with a client who is willing to be assessed using the coordinated entry assessment to be placed on a prioritized list of county prioritized list of services. That information is entered into the county-wide system, which is now called Clarity. And from that, they provide reports, demographics reports. So the first one is on housing navigation clients. So those are clients that are either in the process, in addition to having done the coordinated entry assessment, they've also done a housing case plan. So they're either in the process of looking for housing or have been housed or in maintenance. And currently, Caitlin is working with 17 clients in that situation. And then there's another demographics report, which is the outreach reports. And those are the people who are in outreach, have agreed to do the assessment, but are basically in communications with Caitlin about services, but not actively looking to be housed at this time. And so in this last quarter, BFHB was able to house one person. And as you can, I don't know if you've had a chance to read the narrative, but in quarter two, Caitlin did a lot of outreach, which has now resulted in a lot of a different type of work. So, one quarter was heavy on outreach. She gathered some interest and now is working more closely with more clients to get them housed. So the activities change depending on the focus of the clients served.
Comments, questions, anyone?
I'm curious about the countywide system that you mentioned called Clarity. Is that integrated with other counties? Are we getting that sophisticated in our no?
No. Mm-mm.
I appreciate the narrative report. It's very helpful and puts things in much clearer order. The demographic reports are nice to have. The thing we were asking for particularly was client reactions and satisfaction. And apparently that is not yet forthcoming.
No, they were going to do that in April. So it's going to come as part of the fourth quarter report. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Anything else? Yes, all right. Finally, we get to, yes.
Are you going on? You're leaving this?
Unless you have something to say about it.
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. I just have a very brief comment. On the forms, the information that's being gathered, there's different categories: no, yes, client doesn't know, client refused, and no answer. Is this a Project Hope document survey, or they created, or is it from something larger than them?
Countywide.
Countywide,
Yes.
okay. All right, well, I still want to tell Project Hope maybe they could pass it higher up. I think it would be really great if instead of saying client refused, it said client declined to answer, because there's a sort of a pejorative attached to the word refused. So I know that they don't have any control over it, but they could mention it if they were so inclined. Thank you.
Okay, so the last item is the work plan, and by the way, we're scheduled to present this to the council on May 20th, so this is our last opportunity. Isabel and I Isabel took the lead, incorporated all of the comments that people have made. So what remains is there anything else that people would like to add or reword? And otherwise, our task for this evening is to approve it. You feel like everything that you've mentioned is now represented here? The numbering corresponds to council strategic plan, so things may be in a little different order than we usually think about them. Seeing no comments at this point,
looks good.
I would accept a motion to approve.
Come on, Judy.
Do we want to see if the public wants to, on the agenda item first?
Yeah, well, a motion doesn't mean we're going to vote yet. So.
I move.
Okay, and we have a second? So the motion, no second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the work plan, and are there any comments on that at this point? Yeah.
Before I get up, does this include the survey? What you're approving include the wording of the survey, or is that going to be fine-tuned?
There's the wording of the survey isn't included. It's, which survey do you mean?
The one on diversity, is that not part of this thing?
It is part of it that we would develop it, but it hasn't been developed yet.
Okay, so what's here in this document that I'm seeing is just the general
It's
idea,
the work we're going to do, yeah.
but it's not exactly what the survey will look like.
No,
Okay.
No.
I don't, yeah.
I have a point of, Julie, I'm going to add a question to that. So will council see the draft as it is, or is it just going to go in as the wording above the draft? A little unclear the way it's presented on my screen about what's going into council.
the work plan would be basically the one-pager.
Okay, so the draft and the inclusivity
Yeah.
draft and the diversity draft are work still to be done? Okay.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you.
And those can be used as part of the presentation to council, because they may have questions about those two specific projects. So I would recommend that either you have the information with you so you can talk about what you were thinking about when you present to council.
Now, you're saying you recommend we be able to talk about it, or do you recommend that it be included?
I mean, it's either one. I mean, you could include it as examples. If you feel comfortable enough with the draft, you could include it as exhibits to your work plan, so council gets an idea of what you're thinking about.
And I would ask Judy, since she drafted these for a different purpose, whether she's comfortable with that.
I am not ready. I need a lot more input from the community at large, and I really would prefer to work on this going forward, in addition to which I'm not going to be available May 20th. So I would like to hold these back. I mean, they can be public, but I don't want them as part of our work plan going forward.
Fine. They were intended as internal documents, so let's not include those, but we will, if council has questions about what we have in mind, we can talk about that in general terms.
maybe a possibility would be to, do we know of any other, you were saying that you knew of other nonprofits and for-profits that have used like a diversity report card or whatnot, and it would be possible to get a hold of something like that to use as an example, and strictly as an example, not word for word, but as to give the council visually something to look at to say, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think the references, they're a little scanty, but the references that I do provide at the bottom of the diversity memo could certainly be presented as the direction that we're moving. What's missing from my point of view is input from our local community, and I have done as much outreach as I've had time for, and I'm still working on that to get more input.
Yeah, I think.
I don't want to put it forward until I've got it.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm just trying to, when we're looking at our work plan, how do we move that forward with the community without it being on our work plan? And that's, I mean, you see what I'm saying? So how do we show it to the council to say, this is something that we do want to do, this is something that we're interested in, and we want to move forward with this, engaging the community, but selling them on the idea of it, for lack of a better word.
I don't know.
Well, don't.
If it's our task to sell anybody anything. I mean, I think we can say that this is a piece of work that should be done, that we're asking approval to do it. They're not, at this point, approving anything other than the work to be done. You know, whatever we come up with will then be presented to them. So I think the notion of developing.
Right, and this,
something-
I mean, this is public anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been on our agenda twice, so
Right.
if they want to read it, it's there.
Yeah.
But we say, right, in the work plan, assuming that we, as it stands now, right, develop a model for diversity report card, right? So we're telling them we'll do it. But we're not saying this is exactly what it is. And like you say, they would have to
Because we haven't
approve
done it yet.
anything, yeah.
That's my concern, is the council, I mean, we could come up with a work plan, but the council still has to approve that work plan, right? So just because we have items on a work plan doesn't mean the council is going to approve it, and that's why I want to be able to put our best effort in getting them to approve this. I mean, so, but if the memo can describe it enough that I'm fine with it. I just want to, if we want it on the work plan, I just want to make sure we can get it on the work plan.
Just as an aside, I've been giving a lot of thought to this in the last couple of weeks, and I really do see this as a juxtaposition to, excuse me, a juxtaposition to the strategy of ranked choice voting in the city. Our overall goal is to improve our inclusivity and improve our diversity in our elected officials, in our commissions, in our people we serve, in our staff. And ranked choice voting is being tossed up as the one solution that we can trust. I don't think that's the strategy we want to take. And I don't think I'm ready to have that full conversation, which I kind of envision as a community conversation about which of these two approaches is perhaps the more effective, or are they mutually exclusive, or do they have a synergy that makes them work together? So I think there's a broader discussion that includes that issue as well. But your comments are appreciated.
Will other people be able to attend next week? So that, you know, we'll be there. in case questions arise.
I think as many that could come.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. So I think we'll be
You can be there,
fine.
right? You'll be there too. I'm talking to you.
Me?
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'd be there.
You
for
will
the
be there.
presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think Bart should probably speak for the
that's-
commission, and then if we want to speak for ourselves as commission members, I think that's actually really good.
That's the way it's generally done.
Yeah, to
I would
send
present this, and then if they had questions, you know, anyone who's here could be part of the answering. So Any other questions or comments before we move to a vote from the audience or from the public? No. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the work plan as it appears, which consists simply of the one-pager, not the attachments. How many people are in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I asked for public comment. Anyone opposed? Okay, so the work plan is approved. And we are done with our agenda, I think.
Holy moly.
This will probably be the
Magical.
first and last time.
Really?
So let's talk a little bit about our next meeting and what needs to be on the agenda. And one thing, obviously, will be if the council approves the work plan, then we will need to reorganize ourselves around the work plan. And so I would suggest you think about what areas you might want to focus on. I'm seeing, just as an idea, that of 3 areas where we might want to develop subcommittees. One in the area of housing, one in the area of diversity or inclusiveness, and one in the area of aging in place, which, though it's part of inclusiveness, is big enough, I think, that it probably needs a separate group. So I'm thinking we probably, so if that sounds reasonable, then think about where you might want to work. Anything else that anyone wants to add to the agenda for next time?
I think we're going to be full next time.
Okay. All right, then, we're done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.